Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call, particularly those of you that will be listening to the replay over the next 24 to 48 hours. Today is August 17th, and let's go ahead and get started. First, I'd like to explain to some of our newer callers our general format is for me to spend a few minutes talking about the situation in Iraq as we continue to believe that the Iraqi Dinar is the catalyst for the reinstitution and revaluation of a lot of the other currencies. Spend a few minutes talking about the program we've put in place to assist you, and then go to a brief Q&A. I'm going to try to get a full call in here today. I was on vacation last week, but as I kind of anticipated, things would start popping as soon as I left town, and my phone and emails have been blowing up right up to the moment of this call. As a matter of fact, I'm just getting a call right now as I'm speaking with you, so I'm going to do my best to get through everything here today and try not to be too distracted with all the bells and whistles that are going off all over the place. First, by way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of the dinar or these other currencies. We're not advocating either the sale or purchase of these currencies, but as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, we're sharing with you the information we believe to be relevant. Of course, the most relevant and important piece of information would be the potential window for the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar. We continue to believe that reinstitution could literally happen at any time. And since I was away last week, certainly a lot of things have been happening in Iraq, good and exciting things. I believe I could make the argument that we're closer now than we've ever been to a reinstitution of the dinar. But in fairness, and particularly for those of us that have been involved in this for a decade or longer, we know that Iraq is particularly talented at dropping some X factor on us at the 11th hour. But once again, this is not the 11th hour. This is like 1 minute to midnight. So we are really, really close. So let's go ahead and talk about what's going on. First, of course, we've seen the dissolution of Parliament. 2 weeks ago, I gave 3 potential options. Dissolution of Parliament was the third scenario rather than an option, and this is a good thing. It's based primarily on the fact that the Parliament was unable to form a new government or even pass a budget, so for them to continue to operate would be doing so extra-constitutionally. So in my view, this is a good thing, largely because the default constitutional scenario is to allow the caretaker government to remain in place. However, there are some good things happening. We've seen some diversification in the governmental revenue, which is very important and which some of the international groups wanted to see occur. We're seeing increased revenues in the areas of industry, agriculture, imports, and exports. We're also seeing the white paper reforms beginning to be implemented. One of the most important ones was the confiscation of over 2 trillion dinar from corrupt officials. And this is important, too, because the whole purpose of the deletion of the zeros, or I like to refer to it as the collection of the zeros, is to make sure that a lot of the 3-0 provisional currency is not in the hands of some of these nefarious individuals. And 2 trillion dinar translated into, say, $3 per dinar is a lot of money in the hands of some not nice people. So this is a good thing as well. Another good thing that happened was the Minister of Finance, Alawi, has resigned. This is a good thing. He was one of the individuals that just was an annoying person that was always moving against the tide. He'd made a number of statements recently that He did not see the reinstitution, let alone the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar in 2022 or perhaps for several more years. No one really gave too much credence to that, but I think he sees the direction things are going. And as I've stated in the past, the corrupt officials, the corrupt, more radical Shias want to see Iraq remain the playground for Iran. And in the process, they're embezzling the currency for the day when it eventually does reinstitute and revalue to make their money probably in Iran or some other country. So this is good news. Another thing that is happening is that the banks in Iraq are preparing for the digital system, and they're going to link to the Buna system. Now, Buna is the Arabian or Arab Middle East cross-border multi-currency payment system where these countries will recognize their own currencies rather than using the yen, the ruble, or the U.S. dollar. Similar to the BRICS nations, these regional countries are working together rather than having a Western central bank or an Eastern central bank currency being the predominant reserve currency. So this is all very good news, and we're moving in the right direction. Another thing that might fly under the radar a little bit, but in my opinion is important, is that the CBI officials are having meetings with the head of the Iraqi media network. Now, that sounds like, kind of a strange thing, but when you think about it, one of the things that has to happen for the reinstitution is they need to implement the public education system to explain to the citizenry what the reinstitution and revaluation of the Iraqi dinar means. So the fact that officials from the CBI are meeting with the individuals that would be putting this public information out is very important. So if we stand back and take a look at the situation in Iraq, this is what we see. We see that the parliament is being dissolved, largely, again, because of their failure to form a new government or pass a budget. The constitutional default is the caretaker government, which can run the country. But the caretaker government was designed initially for a parliament that was having difficulty forming a new government. We've gotten to the point now where the parliament's actually been dissolved. So the only governmental body that remains at this point in time would be the caretaker government, which consists of Kazemi as prime minister, Salih as president of the republic, and al-Habussi as speaker of the house. And that's as good a group as you're going to get. So what has really occurred here is that Sadr and the Sadrists were unable to proceed because the coalition framework, which was the loose confederation of Shia, and remember, Sadr is a Shia, but this group was doing everything they could to stop the Sadrist movement and the reforms inherent in the movement, again, because they wanted Iraq to remain a de facto part of Iran. So Sadr, even though he was criticized for it, and I discussed this, did a Machiavellian thing. He stepped back and allowed the coalition framework to proceed to form the new government, enact the reforms, and do all of this. He did so anticipating that they would crash and burn, and that's exactly what happened, because he knew this group wasn't a pro-Iraqi, it was anti-Sadrist. So he didn't think they were going to get anything done, and they didn't. So that worked out very well. So now we have the caretaker government in place. The Council of Ministers, according to the Constitution, and the only word that describes it accurately, in my opinion, has been redelegated to the Government Management Committee. But the fact remains that what we have until the elections is we have a functional government in place that does not have to deal with the obstructionists in the coalition framework, and they're going to be left to do what needs to be done. And they're on the record as wanting to proceed with the reinstitution of their currency. So things are looking really good. Now, I want to bring one other thing to your attention, because we can't ignore what's going on in the United States. I can get into the central bank. I can get into the petrodollar, all of the things that are going on. But I'm just going to mention one thing for your consideration. It seems to me, whether it's coincidental or by design, that the federal government of the United States is aware that the dinar, some of these other currencies, are going to be reinstituting and revaluing, and that a number of Americans, as many as 15 million Americans, there's been estimates 7 to 10, but people have been purchasing dinar and other currencies. As many as 15 million Americans are going to be overnight millionaires. And the reason I say the government's aware of this and doesn't particularly like it is for two reasons. First, we see that the government is now pushing for their new digital currency. And as I've stated in the past, digital currency is nothing but a control mechanism. So while it's kind of a frightening thing to think about, the other way to look at it is it's an act of absolute desperation. It's their last chance to maintain control of the currency and in so doing an indirect control of us. Because the only thing you can do with the digital currency is leave it in the possession of the central bank or exchange it for a good or service. You can't remove it, physically possess it, do something beyond the scope of what they allow. So they're trying to introduce the new digital currency, and just this week, the federal government passed the Inflation Reduction Act, and it's, in my opinion, the Inflation Production Act. You'd have to be an imbecile to believe that this thing's going to reduce inflation. You can't print money and raise taxes and expect inflation to disappear. But they've hired 87,000 IRS agents to go after the quote-unquote billionaires. Well, there's only approximately 50 billionaires in the United States. So the idea that they need 87,000 agents to target 7,500 people is absurd on its face. So they're going after something else. Now, it's true they're going after the middle class, the sole proprietor. When they say, well, we're not going to audit anyone making over 400,000, well, that includes sole proprietors, and the 400,000 could just be the gross earnings of their business. So that's not enough. So in my opinion, what they're angling for is to preemptively get control of the money that the 15 million dinarians could enjoy once the dinar reinstitutes and revalues. So on the one hand, it's bad news that the government is trying to stick their hand in our back pocket once again. But if you know what you're doing and you know how to circumvent what you're doing, it's kind of good news because it tells you they know what's coming, and that is the reinstitution of these currencies. So that leads me to a little bit of a discussion of the plan that we've put together to assist dinarians. It was over a decade ago when our firm decided to put a program together for dinarians. We were holders of dinar and other currencies ourselves. We knew what the potential leverage of this was. But we knew that from our own client base that the average dinarian was not an uber wealthy person, but was in fact a middle class person who, for the first time in their life, was going to be dealing with the daunting task of managing literally overnight a huge portfolio and a huge amount of wealth. So we put together a turnkey program to assist you. It's two-phased. Pre-RV is phase one. Phase two is post-RV. Pre-RV involves the establishment of a pre-RV asset protection trust package. Post-RV involves all of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of the currency. I'm sorry, but my phone keeps buzzing here. I don't know what's going on, but every 3 minutes someone's trying to call me. I hope that's good news. So I want to talk first about phase one, pre-RV, which is the establishment of a pre-RV package of what I call family asset protection package. There are a number of assets or entities that individuals can establish to provide some level of privacy and asset protection. Nothing comes close to the family package of trust that we have put together, but I want to touch on the other possibilities just to show you the difference. So, for example, individuals can establish LLCs or sub-S corporations, and they do provide some asset protection, but primarily by dividing business assets from personal or private assets. The problem here is that the possession of these currencies is a personal asset. In addition, courts have ruled that LLCs or sub-S corporations that are owned in the majority by one person or a closely held group can be pierced for civil litigation. So that's not going to be appropriate for your needs. Some individuals have established something called a revocable living trust. Now, these are statutory trusts regulated state by state. They're designed primarily to allow your estate to avoid the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. But the revocable living trust, sometimes referred to as a loving trust, can provide no privacy or asset protection. So they're going to be inappropriate for your needs. Some individuals have established single irrevocable trusts, and a lot of our clients prior to establishing our trust package had established the single irrevocable trust. Now, those trusts do provide more protection than the LLC, sub-S corporation, or revocable trust, but the problem here is that all of your net worth and assets are within this one single trust. So if anything within that trust gets involved in civil litigation or any kind of investigation, that would necessarily drag all of your other assets and net worth into that as well. The solution is to segregate assets, and the only way to do that is with a group or family trust package, and that's exactly what we have established. Now, given the scenario we find ourselves in with the government today in terms of the governmental intrusion, taxes, and all of the other restrictions and laws that they're passing, given that, along with the fact that you happen to possess an asset like these currencies that could theoretically be worth millions overnight, this package must be established prior to the revaluation of these currencies. And I'm going to review with you all of the benefits that this package provides and why you need to establish this package pre-RV. And I don't like saying this because I don't like the implication that, I'm a used car salesman. I'm just going to state the facts. If I were listening to this call for the first time, I would get our initial package if I believed, as I do, that the reinstitution and revaluation of the dinar could literally happen at any time. So I would at the very least, want to have this information to understand why I would need to establish this trust package prior to the revaluation of these currencies. But let me walk through this with you. First, this trust package will provide you with privacy and anonymity. That's because assets within this trust package are sealed, and the general public will have no knowledge of your net worth or your actual holdings. The second reason you'd want to establish this trust package is in order to avoid personal IRS scrutiny. If you are holding these currencies in direct title when they revalue, the IRS computers will probably spit out an audit. And with the magnitude of this revaluation relative to your prior year's earnings, you're probably looking at a full-blown 6-year audit. Now, such an audit would be time-consuming. It would certainly be an irritation because it's come along at the precise time that these currencies are revalued, and there's many other things you'd much rather be spending your time doing. And third, the cost of our asset protection family trust package would be less than the cost of an IRS audit. On the other hand, if your trust is in force and you have assigned your currencies on paper to that trust package, you will have successfully transferred the taxable event of this revaluation from yourself personally to the trust. Now, this is important for two reasons. First, there's less than a 10% chance of an IRS audit if this revaluation were to occur within our trust. Why? because this trust is a newly formed entity, there is no prior track record, so the IRS has no basis to say that the earnings from this trust are somehow an anomaly. And second, the IRS, as an entity, is a bully. They go after the low-hanging fruit. That's why there are 5 times more audits of middle and lower-class people than wealthy people. Why? Because wealthy people are knowledgeable, because they've got experience with managing money, because they have competent legal protection. And the second thing is that even if the IRS determines to audit your trust, they won't be able to do a 6-year audit. Why? Because the only taxable event within the trust will be the revaluation itself. The third reason you want to establish this package is because included in the package is a special gift subtrust. Now, philanthropic gifting can always be done on a tax-preferred basis, either pre- or post-RV. But in order to avoid a substantial 40% federal gift tax, you're going to need to give currency to families and friends prior to the revaluation. Now, if you're gifting to individuals that you have no problem giving them the currency to exchange for themselves, or giving them the U.S. dollar lump sum after you have negotiated the exchange, that can be accomplished outside of a trust with a standard gift letter. But if you are hesitant for any reason to give any of these recipients the post-RV lump sum, you can gift to them through our specially designed gift subtrust. And because you're gifting through that gift subtrust, their U.S. dollars will be protected along with yours. And you will then be able to manage, invest, and distribute those funds to these individuals as you deem appropriate. The fourth reason you'd want to establish this trust package is because it's been structured in such a way as to allow your estate to bypass the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. I'm going to give you 2 quick scenarios. Scenario number 1, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs an estate of $25 million. Now that estate must go through probate, a process that ordinarily can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months. But probate is a public disclosure process, meaning that the general public will be aware of the size of your estate, who your heirs are, and how much they each stand to inherit. So if anyone feels they have a legitimate claim against you, your estate, or your heirs, they can simply file that claim with a probate court. And that could tie the estate up for years and in some cases even decades. And your heirs will have either limited access or no access at all to their respective inheritance until the probate process is completed. Then there's something called the federal estate tax. This is the tax that the federal government would assess in order for that estate to be transferred to your heirs. Approximately $10 million of that $25 million estate would bypass any federal estate tax, but the balance could be taxed as much as 65%. Now, this scenario is not only unacceptable, it's completely and totally avoidable. How? Scenario number 2. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, you assign those currencies on paper to our asset protection trust package. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs that very same estate of $25 million, but this time protected in our asset protection trust package. As a result, there will be no probate. There will be no public disclosure of your estate. Your heirs will have immediate access to their respective inheritance, and the federal estate tax will be 0, saving your heirs as much as 55% of their inheritance. The fifth reason you'd want to establish this trust package is for some very specific asset protection benefits. One pre-RV, one post-RV. Pre-RV, this trust package will allow you to circumvent something called the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. Now, what does that mean? Under our system of civil procedure, you can only be sued for what you actually own in direct title or the value of property at the time you transfer it out of title to an entity like our trust package. So let's take the previous example from before. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000, transfer the currencies to our trust. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. You begin to live a lifestyle more reflective of your newfound wealth, and a couple of years down the road, someone sees that you're living rather comfortably and decides for whatever reason that they're going to sue you. Well, this prospective plaintiff has a couple of problems. First, he or she better have a very strong case and very deep pockets, because this trust has been structured in such a way as to make it extremely expensive and extremely time-consuming to pursue civil litigation. But second, and most importantly, once any prospective plaintiff learns that pursuant to the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act, the only thing they could ever win by way of a civil award would be $5,000, the value of the currencies or the property at the time you transferred it out of title to our trust, and none of the post-RV value of $25 million, there will be no lawsuit. Post-RV, there's a benefit I like to refer to as limited liability stop-loss. This will protect you from future bad acts after you have acquired this wealth. This protection is accomplished through a legal strategy referred to as segregation of assets. This is why we have established a package of trusts. This is why this is the best asset protection available, and I'll even give you an example of how it works. Once again, we'll use the same example. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000, transfer the currencies to our trust. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. And now that you have $25 million in trust, you decide to make some purchases. So you purchase a larger primary residence, a vacation home, perhaps a half a dozen rental properties for tax write-off and additional cash flow, a couple of cars, a boat, and let's say an RV. But as you purchase these items, you place each of them in their own separate sub-trust to be managed by our master trust. This is what constitutes the package. Now, how does this protect you? Well, let's say one day you're driving one of your new cars, you have an accident, the accident is clearly your fault, and tragically someone is seriously injured or even killed. Well, the family of the victim is going to want to sue you. But remember, civil suits are about monetary awards, and you don't legally own anything. So the plaintiffs would be left to sue the owner of the car that you were driving. Well, who owns that car? One of your sub-trusts, of which you are merely the beneficiary. And what's in that sub-trust? Merely that one car and the car insurance policy. In that scenario, the car insurance carrier will negotiate an out-of-court settlement with the victim's family. You will not be involved in those rather unpleasant negotiations. The car insurance carrier will repair or replace your car, making you whole. And this is important. All of your other assets are safe in the other sub-trusts. Why? Because under the law, those separate sub-trusts are separate legal entities or persons having nothing whatsoever to do with the accident in question, so the plaintiffs would have no standing to pursue those separate legal entities or persons. So this trust package works very much the way a commercial barge would work, where all of the valuable cargo is stored in a series of small compartments. Why? In the event that any compartment is ever breached, the only potential loss would be the cargo in that one compartment. The cargo in the other compartments is safe and secure due to the firewalls, and the barge will never sink. Now, these benefits are lost to you if you do not establish your family trust package prior to the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. Now, there is another benefit, and it's this. If you are, in fact, the holder of one of our pre-RV asset protection trust packages, then you will be eligible to participate in all of the product, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of the dinar. I'm just going to make mention of a couple here. First, after the reinstitution of the dinar in country, our weekly calls will no longer be marketing our family trust package, but will be dealing with the management and funding of this trust and other issues, one of which is we will be in contact with the banks that will be participating in the revaluation. We will be going to those banks, explaining to them who Trust Unlimited is, that we have a substantial number of dinarian clients, that they have on average each client X amount of dinar, and we would like that bank to give us some written documentation as to the best, or the lowest transaction rate and the best for the exchange and the best street rate that will be available to any of our clients that come to their bank with our trust. Now, the banks may cooperate and think this is a great thing. They may not, but at least we will be in a position to contact the banks and try to negotiate the best deal that we can for our clients. Second, approximately 30 days after the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar, not the reinstitution, but the revaluation, we will be sponsoring a seminar, hopefully in Disney World in Orlando, Florida, for all of our clients. Our Trust Unlimited staff will be there once again to give you personal instruction in the management and funding of your sub-trust and the management of the trust package in general. We will also have our tax specialists there. Once you've acquired this wealth, you want to be made aware of some of the more sophisticated tax strategies to reduce your tax exposure legally. We will also have our independent fee-based wealth managers there as well. You're going to want to reposition assets as quickly as possible after the revaluation, because this should be a rather hyperinflationary scenario or situation, meaning that if your money is in financial assets and in currencies, you could be losing value. So you're going to want to transfer a substantial amount of your net worth to tangible assets. And, of course, the best way to hold tangible assets is in our sub-trust within the package. And this way, not only will you avoid loss through inflation, but you're in assets that actually appreciate in an inflationary situation. So this is very important as well. So both Phase 1 and Phase 2 will be made available fully to everyone that has one of our trust packages. Now, our trust package is initially a package of 10 trusts consisting of one master trust that will hold assigned currencies pre-RV, and then financial assets like checking accounts, savings accounts, and investment accounts post-RV, and is authorized to manage the sub-trusts. There will be one optional gift sub-trust which can be utilized to gift currencies to friends and family and then manage the post-RV proceeds. If you do not need that gift sub-trust, that will be available as a standard sub-trust, and it can be converted to a standard sub-trust at any time. And then 8 additional standard sub-trusts to hold physical assets like homes, cars, boats, etc. Now, this was the simplification of a more sophisticated trust package that we've utilized in the past for some of our wealthy clients, a package that had an initial cost of anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000. But when we decided to work with dinarians, we knew that that price tag was going to be unaffordable for too many. So by simplifying the package, we've been able to reduce the cost to $3,000. There are a number of ways you can pay for that. Pay us up front. We'll discount the price by $500. The price would then be $2,500, saving you $500. If that's not affordable for you, we do have a deferred payment arrangement. You'd make an initial payment of $525, which sum would offset our out-of-pocket costs just to produce and deliver your trust package to you. The balance of the $3,000 would then be paid in $100 monthly installments. This is the one-time only cost of the trust package. The only other cost would be the rather nominal paralegal fees to amend the trust at your request or to fund the sub-trusts. One other suggestion, we do accept credit cards. Pay us up front with a credit card. Not only will you get the $500 discount, but the minimum payment on our card on your credit card would be less than the $100 a month you'd be paying to us under our deferred payment arrangement. But we will work with you in whatever method works best for you. Our objective is to help you get your trust in force and currencies assigned and all of your affairs in order for all of the reasons that we've stated here. Now, we will be going to the Q&A, but before we do, and for the benefit of our newer callers, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Trusts Unlimited and why you should contact us to get our initial no-obligation package. Our trust package was authored by our attorney, Robert Bly. He's been a practicing attorney for over 40 years, specializing in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. And we will be discussing offshore planning post-RV as well. I myself hold degrees in political science, macroeconomics, and finance. I've worked in these areas for nearly 40 years, and I, along with my clients, were personally involved in the reinstatement of the Kuwaiti dinar in the early 90s. So between the two of us, Robert Bly and I have over 80 years' experience working precisely in these areas, and I frankly know of no firm that can make that case. But it's important that you get your affairs in order for a number of reasons. We know that under our system of civil procedure, it's when you hold assets in direct title that you can lose control of them. And invariably, it's at precisely those times that you need and want control. If you've lived for any length of time, you've either experienced directly in your own life or through friends and family things like unexpected divorce, permanent incapacitation, the onset of dementia, premature death and prolonged and complicated probate processes. Then there are, of course, investment losses, business losses, and even bankruptcies. The number 2 loss of wealth, courtesy of the information age in the aggregate, is now identity theft. But the number 1 loss of personal wealth remains confiscation through civil litigation. Anything you own in direct title can be taken from you. So in point of fact, the only way that you can manage, protect, and control everything at all times and in all circumstances is through the establishment of package of irrevocable trusts, and particularly if you have an asset like these currencies that you're anticipating a substantial increase in value. And we at Trusts Unlimited will do everything we can to help you accomplish your personal and financial objectives both pre- and post-RV as we understand them. So thanks again for listening to this call. For those of you calling in for the first time, we are going to move to the Q&A, and then I will be giving you our contact information. So I would suggest you have a pen and paper handy. Our package has a lot of information about us, about the trust, about the valuation, about our services, particularly some of the things we're going to be doing on a post-RV basis, because pre-RV, it's rather simple. You establish the trust, and you assign the currencies to it. But after the revaluation, everyone's going to be moving in a different direction, different ages, different family situations, different objectives, different risk tolerances. And so that personal assistance is going to be very important. So let me go ahead and move to our Q&A. And while I'm waiting for any potential questions, I want to give you our contact information. You can go to our website, which is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc.com. Our email address is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc@gmail.com. And our phone service is 307-274-4122. Contact us. We'll be happy to send you our no-obligation initial package. It does contain everything you need if you decide to proceed with the establishment of your trust package. But again, you're under absolutely no obligation to do so. You can review the package, contact us by phone or email if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you, and there will be no consultation fee. We have some questions here. Let me see. Our first questioner is, did this open? Let's see.
Hello, Jim.
Yes. Is this 202?
Yes, Jim, it is. I'm sorry. I didn't realize I was on.
Yeah, there's my fault. They changed the format on this thing, and all the cues are different, and I was trying to figure out if I'd accidentally cut you off, but I'm glad you...
Well, I'm here. Thank you so much. I'm a long-time listener, first-time caller, so that's why I was a little confused there. First, I just want to say thank you so much. I really appreciate all the information that you provide weekly. It's much, much appreciated. But I did have a question about your opening statements with Parliament being dissolved. I've seen articles that say, yes, it's dissolved, no, it's dissolved, and it's just really hard to know what the true situation is. So can you talk a little bit about how you believe that right now Parliament is dissolved?
Okay, you know what? I anticipated this question because you're right. There is... It's funny. I've said this many times. I don't like the parliamentary system. I find it to be too complicated. The particular system that the Iraqi nation has established is even more convoluted. I think it's dystopian. Now, the situation is this. The parliament, in my understanding, is not officially dissolved, but that the caretaker government is operating as though it has been dissolved. Mm-hmm. The problem is it's so dysfunctional they can't do anything. So you're technically right. I probably should have been a little more accurate about that. And that's why I said they've fallen by default to the caretaker government because the parliament is non-functional. It's already operating extra-constitutionally because they had 30 days to establish the new government, and they didn't do it. So they're basically non-existent, even though there's not a formal dissolution. So that I hope that it's hard to clarify the confusion that is the Iraqi government because there's all the sectarian issues, there's the tribal issues, and there's the nefarious characters that, like Maliki, that are still, on the street. But for all intents and purposes, it's an extra-constitutional body that is defunct, and the caretaker government's running the show, along with the central bank, which operates independently anyway.
Thank you for that clarification. I really appreciate that. And then just one more kind of follow-up question. The finance minister resigning. So net, you think that this is a good thing for moving forward on the reinstitution and the revaluation of the dinar?
I don't think his staying or going in and of itself is going to have an effect. He just was out there. Once again, he's the mouthpiece for the people that don't want to see it happen. And so he's out there saying, well, there's going to be no reinstitution or revaluation this calendar year and foreseeable future. I didn't buy it when he said it, and no one's listening, so he's gone.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and your thoughts, and hopefully we won't hear from you next week, but if we do, I'll be here.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye. Okay, our next caller is area code 603. That's 603.
Good afternoon, Jim. Can you hear me?
What's going on over there?
Hey, Jim, it's Don down in Florida. How you doing?
Okay. How are you all doing?
Man, I'm doing wonderful. Jane's doing wonderful. Cat, the dog, everybody's good. Everybody's good. We're just excited, waiting for all this stuff to come to fruition here. I want to give a shout-out to our friend Les up there in the Chicago area. I haven't heard from him for a while. So, hey, Les. Anyway, my question to you. On the Guru site, there's a gentleman in there goes by Bob the Tax Man. He insists that the income from this will be ordinary income. You say all along it's not because it's capital asset. So
that may be the case. As I've said many times, our reading, Section 640 A and B refers to the exchange in tax deferred. So when the reinstitution happens, we will try to get a private letter ruling from them about that. It's our view that the way 988E2 reads is that it's going to be cap gain. All right. But once again, we did try to get information from the IRS. They said they would defer response until the event. I'm assuming the event will be the reinstitution. So we are trying to get, but the way we read right now, I'm not saying the way it is, the way we read the code is it's long-term, short-term trust in the trust. But you're right. They could come back and call it ordinary income. I put nothing past this bunch. And as I said on my call, they didn't hire 87,000, or they're not in the process of hiring 87,000 new armed agents to play nice.
Right. Now, even if it is ordinary income, because the event happens within the trust, it's still tax deferred, isn't it?
That's the way we read the code, but that doesn't mean the IRS does. That's why
I understand.
That's why I constantly say, if the revaluation happens in the first half, the first 6 quarter, that gives us time to compel the IRS to confirm in writing what the tax status is. If not, if the revaluation were to occur 3 days before the end of a quarter, taxes would be due in 2 weeks. We'd have no choice but to pay the ordinary income and simultaneously file for a refund citing Section 643A and B. So, it is what it is. And like I said, with the bunch of kleptocrats we have in there now, they're going to try to stick it to it. They don't want us to have the money at all. So they're going to do everything they can to take as much of it away from us as possible. What we can't do is fail to pay the tax because 100% penalty on 50% tax is 100%. So they take all of it. So we can't let it happen. And I don't put it past. I put nothing past this bunch. I put nothing past them.
For sure. Okay, well, that was my only question for today. Doing a great job. Keep her up. But one more thing. How's your daughter doing?
Everything's great. As a matter of fact, I had a little birthday party last week. She was there. Her brace is off. She's great. She's back to her.
Nice.
She's 95 that way. But thanks for asking.
Beautiful. Okay. Thanks, Jim. Again, hey, the left's up there. Maybe he's on the line too. Okay. Thanks, Jim. Bye-bye.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye. Next caller is 312.
Hey.
What's up, Les?
How's it going, Jim? Happy belated birthday.
Excuse me?
You did have a birthday last week, right?
Yes, I sure did.
Happy belated birthday.
Thanks very much. I appreciate it. I had a great time, but now it's back to work. And, it's funny because the whole time I was there, I was saying this damn thing's going to happen. So that's good news, but the bad news is everyone that traveled, we all ended up down Asheville at the Grove Park Inn, and everyone flew down there, and we just had a great time. But I didn't want to have to, because if this thing popped, I'd have no choice. I'd have to disappear.
Well, I'm going to tell you, it's my weekend to travel Saturday.
Uh-oh.
So I'm going on a cruise for 7 days.
Uh-oh. Well, you should be all right. 8 days. I mean, if you get right back, you'd be all right. Because remember, it's got to reinstitute for it. Well, it's theoretical. Who knows? This could be a one-off. It could reinstitute and revalue simultaneously, but that's highly unlikely.
Yeah. I want to say hey to my buddy down there in Florida. What's going on? I hear the dogs and the cats are doing fine, he says, right?
That's right. I can hear him in the back.
Oh, boy. All righty. So, one question. The professor's fine, right? You didn't say anything else, but he's doing well.
Yes, he's doing great. Doing well.
Yeah. Say hi to me. Say hi to him for me.
Well.
So, you were thinking this thing was about to happen, and you said earlier that we are really close to it happening. So, is that meaning the government's going to be seated or needs to be seated, or it doesn't matter whether they're seated or not?
Okay, two things. First of all, the reason I say it could happen at any moment is because everything that needed to be done has been done. Then the question becomes, but how can they do it without the government seated? Because the caretaker government is the only government that there is, because the central bank can operate independently, because this Supreme Judicial Council said that the caretaker government can do whatever necessary, and that was prior to the dissolution of the parliament, or at least the process of the dissolution of parliament taking place. So, and another example is the most outspoken or high-profile person saying it's not happening this year is the Minister of Finance, and he resigned. So that is an indication. And as I said, it may not be directly related, but I don't think it's just a coincidence that the federal government's now trying to push their digital currency, and they're trying to unleash 87,000 agents on 752 billionaires. It doesn't add up. So something else is going on, and I hope it's this.
Well, I tell you this, those agents, I mean, it's going to take them how long to get them activated? 2 years?
I agree.
So the next
I
president can just cut it right down, correct?
That they
right?
can, but remember that if they do activate these people, remember there's going to be, 15 million more millionaires in the country? So this is all fertile ground for these people,
All right.
Okay. So
all right.
But I don't think. I think that that's a consideration, but I think primarily it's the continued assault on the middle class. And, when they say we won't tax anyone over $400,000, but that's just about every sole proprietor has a gross in that area, so that they're declaring that as income when it's really business income. So this is the crap we're dealing with. And, I mean, it just is what it is. But I will say this. I should have gotten into it, but even if you don't have currencies, you really need to establish this trust, because it really, really limits what these people can do. It's an extra layer of protection that the average citizen doesn't have. So, it's just the place that we're in right now. There aren't too many things this private citizen can do to force the federal government and its agencies to make sure that we receive the due process to which we are entitled, and that's what trusts do.
Okay. Thanks for taking my call, Jim. Have
Yes,
a great
sir.
day. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Good talking to you.
You too, my friend. Take care. Bye-bye now.
All right, buddy.
All right, Les was our last caller for this afternoon. Again, I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call. If you're calling for the first time, or whether you have been or not, and you understand we're getting close on this thing and maybe it would be a good idea to at least take a look at our package, please contact to get our no-obligation package. Again, it does contain everything you need if you wish to proceed, but you're under absolutely no obligation to do so. There's a lot of information there for you. You can learn a lot by reading through that. You can contact us by phone or email if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you, and there will be no consultation fee. Our next call will, of course, be next week. Certainly, if something of a dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we'll try to get out an emergency email and schedule an emergency conference call. But failing that, we'll be back next week, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks for listening, everyone. Have a great week, and let's hope that this thing gets done and gets done soon. Bye-bye now.